What's up, sports fans? I'm Patrick Jagir, the Cosmic Alchemist, and welcome to my October 2019 astrological forecasts, so my predictions for the month of October 2019. So, quick FYI here, I do Vedic astrology, so it's the old Indian system. It's a sidereal system. So if you follow mainstream astrology, all of the placements that I'm going to talk about of the planets within signs are going to sound very different than what you're used to. So, just FYI. Anyway, well, October is going to be a hell of a month here, and I keep saying that. I keep saying it's going to be an interesting month. It's going to be an intense month, but we're just living in intense times, and we're living in interesting times. So, October is going to be interesting, and it's definitely going to deliver its share of surprises. So, real quick here, I want to do synopsis for a couple minutes, and then we'll just kind of take it day by day and get into the details. So, as you saw in the title, one of the things I'm calling October is the rebirth of the goddess Venus. So, Venus was in some tough spots for the month of September. Venus was in Virgo. Doesn't really like to be there. It's its debilitated sign. So Virgo is all about, critical, detailed, oriented thinking, being very intellectual. And Venus is creativity, and it's friendship and romance and diplomacy, and it's feeling good. It's very right brain. It's that complement to intellect. So very different. So it's the least comfortable sign for Venus. And in addition to that, for about second half of September, maybe a little more, Venus was sort of behind the sun, so Venus was combust. It was at very similar degrees to the sun, so we couldn't see Venus because the light of the sun was drowning it out. So it's almost like this myth of the goddess kind of going into the underworld. So towards the end of the month, Venus passed the sun, and now we can see her again. So as the month of October moves on, I think it's the 4th of October. Let me check my notes. 4th of October, Venus transits into Libra. So that's Venus's home. So, what we're going to see here is we're going to see from this, and then from some other things that are going on, we're going to see a decrease in the anger and the frustration that's been flying around. Because we had Sun and Mars traveling together for so long through Leo and into Virgo. So when Mars gets close to the Sun, it gets fueled up and very energized and juiced up. So, and then Venus being in that tough position in Virgo, not only was there a lot of anger and frustration, but communication was very critical. So communication is going to get more harmonious, and the anger factor is going to dial down. So Venus is going back to her home. It's what's called a Multrikon sign in Vedic astrology. It's basically the sign that a planet is at home in. It's like their home or like their office. They're the strongest there. So we've got that to look forward to. Now, in addition, October is definitely going to be a month of revelations. You're going to just see more scandals flying out of seemingly nowhere. Things coming out of the dark. The eclipse season is still in effect. So it's going to be more scandals, more revelations, more hidden agendas and lies coming to the surface. And, it's like I'm always saying, it's not just, for people who get into the whole two-party thing. It's not just going to be the party you don't like. It's everyone. It's like the Jeffrey Epstein scandal is still unraveling, and it's everyone. So it's not just Donald Trump who was friends with him, but it's Bill Clinton. And it was these people in academia, people at Harvard and MIT have resigned or are at least under scrutiny for having taken donations from him and, having been kind of close to him. Bill and Melinda Gates' names are out there as entrusting money to Epstein to handle for them. So they're wrapped up in this, arch progressives. just like Bill Clinton, just like these academics at Harvard and MIT and, some other schools, Brown. And then even Stephen Hawking's hat has been thrown into the ring because he was taking research donations from Jeffrey Epstein. He even went to his island. I can't imagine. That must have been a sight to see him at Orgy Island, but, use your own imagination. So, just more of this stuff, coming out of nowhere, seemingly nowhere. It's always been going on, and the signs have been there, but we've either been in denial, we didn't want to pay attention to it, or we didn't know how to look because no one taught us. But it was always happening, and the signs were always there. So much of that, even these revelations are going to, come to a head with a breakdown in government, starting in November, continuing into December, January, and February 2020. And then, too, let me just grab my tea here. And then the other thing, I think we're going to see more storms and natural disasters like earthquakes, because Mars is in such a position where it's looking at Neptune and Uranus, and it's forming something that is called a yod. So this yod comes out of Western astrology, but an astrologer that I consider to be a mentor mentioned this in her forecast, so I said, well, I'm going to relay this. So the yod, it's the Hebrew letter yod, and like I said, it's something that Western astrologers use, but I say if the tool exists, use it. It's why I talk about Pluto and Uranus and Neptune, even though that they're not visible with the naked eye planets. Now that we know about them, I might as well factor them into this, this traditional Vedic astrology system. So anyway, the yod, the finger of God, it's basically Mars is going to be looking at Uranus and Neptune, and you can think of this as especially with Neptune, it's like, Neptune, or Poseidon as he's called in Greece, is spearing the ocean floor with his trident, and it's causing earthquakes and natural disasters, storms, ocean waves, things like that. So, and that, and so Mars is the trigger, and that is all about the anger and conflict and turmoil in human consciousness is affecting the natural environment. And a little sidebar here, that's the whole thing that, is not taken into consideration in the mainstream with global warming. It's like, well, can human consciousness be causing this? Yeah, definitely. Pollution's definitely a problem, but, it's not just the CO2, there's more at work here. The sun. The sun represents our egos and our souls, and when the sun has a lot of activity, when there's a solar maximum, when there's all kinds of coronal mass ejections, it sends more radiation to the earth, and the earth heats up, and it's driven by human consciousness. Sun's going into a solar minimum, incidentally, so I think winters are going to get colder and temperatures are going to cool, because it's a yin and yang thing, and the sun is always getting hot and cooling down and getting hot and cooling down. There was a medieval warming period, the Vikings were calling Newfoundland and Nova Scotia and Labrador Vinland, Vineland. Vines don't grow there today, grapevines don't grow there today. And then there were many ice ages in recent history in the 1600s, and then in the early 1800s, like the winter of 1812 was absolutely freezing. The Stradivarius violins are made out of that wood from the winters of 1811, 1812, because the winters were so cold. It was a mini ice age. It changed the wood, and no other violins sound like them. That's why they're so valuable and so precious. Anyway, now another thing I want to talk about with this, this Mars in Virgo that's going on for the entirety of the month, is that, Mars is a healer. So Mars is like a surgeon with the scalpel out. So, and Mars symbolizes healers in general. So, and Virgo is the sign of healers, and also, illness and, setbacks and, things like that. So when you see Mars in Virgo with the sun with it, which it is for a lot of the month. Mars is getting all this energy from the sun, so there's definitely potential for, for a harsh flu season, for, maybe some sort of a pandemic, but, at the very least, just a rough flu season. But then there's potential for, some really cool innovations, in medicine and, medical science and medical technology. So that's something to look forward to. There's a lot of potential for it. So another thing with this yod, with this, this finger of God, that Mars, Mars is triggering Neptune and Uranus, Neptune, the king of the ocean, he's spearing his trident into the ocean floor and shaking the earth. And you've got, Uranus is the great revealer. So there's setbacks because, when they reveal things and they shake things up and, cause changes, there are setbacks. So there can be a lot of frustration with this. And the other thing too with Mars is that, Mars and Saturn are looking at each other for the whole month. You have, Saturn is 4 houses away from Mars. So Mars looks at Saturn with the 4th aspect, and then Mars is 10 houses away from Saturn. So with Saturn's 10th aspect, it looks at Mars. So when they look at each other, it creates, frustration and setbacks and, just, kind of difficulties. So, there's a lot going on here. So just be ready for setbacks, and try to keep the frustration to a dull roar. And then also on the 31st, you have Mercury going into retrograde. So, Mercury will be in retrograde. We'll be moving backwards from the reference point of the Earth for, a good 3 weeks. So, definitely back up your data files on your computer. Get your car and your machinery checked out. If you own a plane or a boat, get those checked out because, things break, and, setbacks happen during Mercury retrograde. So, definitely take the time to look into that. And another big theme for October before we start getting into the nitty-gritty is that, we need to be prepared to make lemons out of lemonade. So there are going to be some unfortunate, some difficult situations that beautiful results come out of. And, this one thing this has to do with is that there's going to be something called a Kalasarpa yoga. For most of the month, a Kalasarpa yoga is when all of the visible planets, so I'm talking Jupiter, Saturn, Mars, Venus, Mercury, and then the Sun and Moon, are all on one side of the Rahu Ketu axis. And Rahu and Ketu form an axis because they're always in opposite signs. So when you get all the visible planets on one side, it's kind of it's a window for very destined and fated events. And so in the beginning of the month, this Kalasarpa yoga will be running. Basically, the moon keeps sort of changing sides of the axis. But then by about mid-month, I think it's the 18th. We'll get into it later. The 19th. So by the 19th of October, the Kalasarpa yoga is back on, and it's on through November 3rd. So there's going to be a few weeks of this. So it's a window for fated events. So, but, one thing with the Kalasarpa is that, all of the, on October 31st, all of the benefic planets, so the benevolent planets, so we're talking Jupiter, Moon, Mercury, and Venus, will all be in Scorpio for this Kalasarpa yoga, where they're all on one side of the Rahu Ketu axis, when all the planets are over there, all the visible planets. So, when you have all the benefic planets in this one sign, and you've got Jupiter at the 29th degree of Scorpio, and this is on, October 31st, Jupiter will be in the Scorpion's tail in that last degree of Scorpio. So it's like these benevolent planets are going to use the Scorpion's tail to sting, but it's going to hurt initially, but good things are going to come of it. And this has to do with, revelations coming down. So, in Venus, in this Kalasarpa yoga, where all these benevolent planets are stacked up in Scorpio, Venus is at the lowest degree. So by the 31st of October, Venus will be at 3 degrees with Mercury. But the planets at the lowest degree in a conjunction sort of rule it and have the final say. So this to me is, it's almost like Kali. Kali destroys to facilitate rebirth. And she's a goddess as well. So our goddess Venus is going to sort of set up a situation where things will be destroyed so a rebirth can happen. And really, I think it's going to be all about perceptions, because Scorpio is all about underlying issues, deep emotional, psychological issues, about hidden things, about lies, things going on in the dark, under the cover of darkness. So this will be interesting. So let's get into all the nitty gritty. So that's your summary if you don't want to hang in for the whole thing. So here we go. So 1st of October, we start the month. And, kind of the main features here, since we've been talking about Venus. In Virgo, we'll have Venus at 26 degrees on the 1st of October. So almost out of Virgo. And then also in there is the Sun at 13 degrees. And Mars at 3 degrees. So, since Venus leaves Virgo to enter Libra on the 4th of October, the first 3-4 days of October will be kind of a continuation of September with these critical, kind of angry, frustrated, nitpicky communications, because, Venus is communication, and you've got Mars at a lower degree in the same sign. So the planet at the lower degree has the most influence. So, Mars, when you have Mars and Venus together, it makes communications or friendships or relationships, kind of angry and volatile and aggressive. And then the Sun is right there feeding Mars more heat, more energy. So, the first few days, kind of like September, but they'll come and go fast. And incidentally, we start October in this Kalasarpa yoga with all the visible planets to one side of the Rahu Ketu axis. So, another feature here in Libra, we have the Moon and Mercury on the 1st of October. So the Moon is the mind. It's it's the entirety of our consciousness, and then Mercury is the intellect. So intellect and mind, they're in Libra. So Libra is the symbol is the scales, and they're merchant scales. So the mind and the intellect will be weighing value, and Libra's a Venus ruled sign, so it's all about partnerships and doing business, and getting creative too, because Venus it's creative. Venus is the source of our creativity. So the mind and the intellect will be getting creative about, new partnerships, new businesses, new ways to do things. So, and also about, kind of networking and building relationships with people. So Jupiter, still in Scorpio, and, so the higher consciousness, Jupiter's thinking about, and Jupiter's direct now. So the higher consciousness in Scorpio is thinking about, deep-seated issues and emotions and thoughts that have been troubling us individually and collectively, and just hidden things in general that need to come to the surface to be dealt with. And then in Sagittarius, like I keep talking about, we have our friends Pluto, Saturn, and Ketu. So Sagittarius, sign of beliefs, philosophies, religions, worldviews, all that stuff, even spirituality and higher learning. So Pluto, god of the underworld. So in the underworld, the underworld is your unconscious mind, and it's where, all the stuff, all of the feelings and the thoughts that are not accessible to your conscious mind reside. And so the god of the underworld makes you deal with underlying, deep, difficult thoughts and emotions. So Pluto's making us do that in the realm of our worldview and our philosophies. So, and then as well, we've got that conjunction still pretty close with Saturn and Ketu. Saturn's at 19 degrees, Ketu's at 18. So Saturn and Ketu both have to do with fears and anxieties, and when it comes to people's belief systems and their worldviews and their philosophies, people are operating out of total fear, and fear breeds extremism. It doesn't matter if you're a Democrat, Republican, left, right, Christian, Muslim, whatever the hell you are, whatever you subscribe to. fear brings extremism. So, K2, on its best days, it's a very spiritual person, someone who just is not interested in this material world and just wants to get in tune with spirituality. But on a bad day, K2 is a fundamentalist and kind of a terrorist. And, you can join K2 with Saturn, you have a fundamentalist. Because Saturn is all about doing things a certain way and doing things the way it sees as the right way. So you make K2. And K2 can be, willing to destroy and willing to kill, to get its way, to get close to God. It's like a suicide bomber blowing a bomb off because they think they're, basically going into some, special union with God. So that's what we're dealing with. And like I always say, extremism is mainstream right now. Obsessive thinking is very mainstream right now. Both parties, both sides, all doing it. Fundamentalists, fundamentalists are not just right-wing and they're not just religious. They come from everywhere. They can be scientific, academic, intellectual humanists too. They can be progressives. They can be, total socialist, left-wing, whatever. They can be right-wing. It's all the same. So anyway, we have, so like I said, we're going to have this critical, kind of aggressive, nitpicky communication to start the month with, but Venus moves on to Libra, to its home sign, October 4th, so that's going away. And what did I not mention on here? And then the other thing you have too is, you have Neptune in Aquarius. So Neptune is still in Aquarius and Neptune is still retrograde, so it's even more intense. So again, Neptune it's deceit, it's delusion, it's, self-delusion. It's all about illusions, and it's in Aquarius. So Aquarius is we the people, we the everyday people. So it means we the people are not seeing things clearly. And Neptune rules over virtual reality and mass media. Mass media is a virtual reality because, for example, you watch the president or someone in Congress give a speech. If you're not there watching that speech, you're not really watching it any other way. If you're watching it on TV, you're streaming it over the internet, you're not watching it because mass media is editing and showing you what they want to show you, So media can make anyone look like a doofus or make anyone look great. And the way they do it is if some public figure is, the media's darling, then they make them look good. And if they don't like them, they make them look stupid. And so the only difference is it's a difference of showing someone's mistakes or editing them out. Mainstream media could have made Barack Obama look like a dunce the same way they do it to Donald Trump, but they just show you all of Donald Trump's mistakes, but the way they portray Barack Obama was that like he walks on water. So, mass media is an illusion, and it's a way that we can delude ourselves and lie to ourselves. Even during the Nuremberg war crimes trials after World War II, even, top Nazis said that, propaganda is not when somebody lies to you, it's when you lie to yourself. You're given an opportunity to lie to yourself. So this is just something we're dealing with. And then in Aries, you have, and this is through the whole month, when we're talking, Neptune and Uranus here. So Uranus is in Aries. It's in retrograde. So Aries is all about initiative, getting things started, taking action. It's also about leadership. But then when Uranus is in retrograde, we're tempted to basically go back in time and go back to old things that didn't work, that weren't serving us. So, we have to watch out for this because, again, politics is all about that. The right wing wants to go back to, the 50s and the 80s, 1950s, 1980s, because they feel like those are great, ideal, comfortable times. And then the left wants to go back to the civil rights era in the 60s and the Bill Clinton days in the 90s and the New Deal days, in the 1930s when FDR, had almost absolute power. But we can't go back in time because that stunts your growth, your psychological, your emotional, and your spiritual growth. So we have to move forward. So, get ready for that because it doesn't always tickle. So moving on, we have October the 4th. As I mentioned, Venus moves into Libra, its home sign. So, Venus in Libra, she's at home. She has her most power. She has max creativity, maximum ability to build friendships and relationships and to communicate and to, just create new things and facilitate transformation. So, and then also on the 4th, Pluto comes direct. So Pluto, the god of the underworld, who's hanging out in Sagittarius with Ketu and Saturn, goes direct. So he's going to start marching forward towards Capricorn. So as Venus goes into Libra, to her home sign, she's going to team up with Mercury for a little while before she passes Mercury later this month. Mercury's getting ready for a retrograde, so it's slowing down. So if you put Mercury and Venus together, they're within 7 degrees, they're fairly close. So you put Venus and Mercury together in Libra, you're going to have creative and harmonious communication and thinking and creativity. So the intellect will be focused on communication and creativity and how to do those things better. But, come at them from a right brain, creative and intuitive kind of way. So it's a good time for intuition too. Because Venus is, in the Vedic culture, the old Indian culture, Venus is Asura guru. So Jupiter is a guru of the Devas, the celestial gods, and then Venus is Asura guru. So it's a guru of the Asuras, so the gods and goddesses of the earth. So 2 different realms, the heavens and the earth. So Venus is a teacher. So she can teach us to be more receptive and more intuitive right now. And we need to be more receptive because there are going to be things happening, from this month into 2020, into 2021 and beyond that are out of our control, and we're going to need to learn to accept them. So no matter who we are, it's like I'm always saying, nobody's going to get their smug political or religious victory. Nobody's going to be proved 100% right. We're all going to have to eat the humble pie. So that's the way that is. So where was I? So Venus going to Libra, it's in its home sign. Communication's going to soften. It's going to get, some more diplomatic. We can, maybe patch over relationships that have been rough, that have been strained. And, we have access to creativity right now. So, we really need to make the best use of, this harmonious, powerful place that Venus is in to mend relationships, to build friendships, to communicate, because when you go into intense, challenging times, you need to have your friends around you. You need to be able to lean on people and have people lean on you too. So it's give and take. So, and again, let's go back to that Pluto direct on October 4th. So Pluto direct, it brings our attention to the underworld. And since it's in Sagittarius, Pluto's going to show us how self-righteous and fundamentalist and obsessive we've been about our belief systems and thinking that we and our political party and our little group have all the answers. So many news stories showing how people have double standards right now, especially the whole Biden-Ukraine thing, where basically, Biden as a vice president and his son were conducting insider trading. They were using inside information, to make billions in Ukraine off of that natural gas company. So I don't want to get into that too much, but it's the kind of thing where if Donald Jr. had done the same thing, people would be screaming off at their heads. But, and this is, when this happens, this is what I call, the in-law effect, or, my family is not as fucked up as my in-laws effect. And people do this, and then they apply it to their political leanings. So, in people's families, they'll nitpick their in-laws, and they like to talk about how screwed up and dysfunctional their in-laws are. But then when someone in their same family has the same, dysfunctional, knuckleheaded behaviors, there's always excuses for someone within their own family. So the in-law effect, that's what I call it. So I don't want to get too much into that. Now, another thing that will be going on here is, Sun and Mars are still in Virgo. So, the Sun is still feeding energy and intensity to Mars, and Mars is our vitality, it's our anger, volatility, it's our ability to take the initiative and initiate action, to make things happen. So we'll be wanting to get things done. And the other thing is too is when Mars is in Virgo, Mars is a healer. So it's like a surgeon with the scalpel out, basically. So so Mars is helping us to heal individually and collectively, and it's not always pleasant, but it's bringing to our attention parts of ourselves and our behaviors that we have to fix and that we have to change. So all that is unnecessary and obsolete and it doesn't serve us anymore is being cut away. And it's not always pleasant to change, but sometimes you just have to do it. So moving on, October the 13th, we have a full moon in Pisces. So the full moon maximum, that's going to be October the 13th at 5:08 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Eastern Daylight Time. So that's East Coast of the United States. The Greenwich Mean Time is 9:08 p.m. October the 13th. So that's the full moon in Pisces. So, the moon in Pisces, having a full moon in Pisces, full moon is basically your consciousness laid bare, because the full moon is your mind, the entirety of your consciousness. And the full moon reflects the light of the sun. That's why the moon gets all big and bright, is because the sun shines directly on it. So during full moons, things that were kind of below the surface within our minds, thoughts and feelings that we weren't aware of, become more apparent. And, we're basically forced to deal with them and to feel the feelings we don't want to feel, and, and sit with the thoughts that we don't want to feel. But, that's just what happens. So, when you have, Pisces is all about freedom and liberation, and it's about exiting and escape. Pisces is considered the exit from this world, so it's considered like the soul's door, so it can, move on to the next place, the next world. So, when you have a full moon here, people get frustrated because they want to change things so they can, move their life to a better place. But the feeling that comes on is, sort of one of escape. It's like, you want to escape from your current circumstances and move on to better ones, and you want to do it now. It's like you're sick of this world, you're sick of the limitations of this world and the rules of this world, and the sometimes the not so fun realities in this world, and you just want to escape it and get on to something better. So that's if you're sensitive to full moons, you'll definitely be feeling that. And even if you're not, that'll be on your mind somewhere. And then collectively, people are thinking about this. Again, turn on the news with the whole political reality show. That's a big thing going on, is, people want to, some people, they either want to just get rid of this president right now. When you hear people in conversation, it's like they really don't care if there's any evidence or any justification. They just want to get rid of him because he's a big meanie, you know what I mean? And then, and then the other side, they just want to make all the investigations go away. So, and they just want it done now. And people are very contentious about this whole subject right now. So, on the full moon, people in general they'll be very frustrated with what's going on. And they just want to jump to some ideal future that they envision. But, you have to crawl through the present. You have to take the slow boat through time, So, and then across from full moon in Pisces is the sign Virgo, and you have Sun and Mars there. So, the Sun is the soul. It's also the ego, and Mars is with it. So this Mars that's getting all this energy from the Sun is looking right at that full moon and making it, making it frustrated and angry and impulsive and just raring to go and raring to just bust a move. So, it brings on frustration. So, but the big thing is, with that Sun and Mars and Virgo looking at the full moon, it'll become more apparent that, we have to deal with the reality we're in, and we have to heal it. So, all these frustrating things are coming to mind because they need to be healed. So, moving on to October 18th. So October 18th, the Sun enters Libra. So, this will be interesting. This is the humble pie right here, the Sun entering Libra. Because Libra is the Sun's sign of debilitation. So, the Sun is the ego, and the Sun is the king. It symbolizes a king. In Libra, the sign of Libra is a marketplace. It's like you watch an Indiana Jones movie, and he's in Cairo, Egypt, and there's that marketplace, and there's all those vendors, peddling their wares and yelling, and there's all the camels and the horses walking around, and there's just crowds of people, and there's things that smell funny, the camel's pooping, and someone might have rotten fruit and vegetables, and it's just noisy, it's smelly, there's all this stuff going on, people are pushing stuff in your face for you to buy it. And the Sun being a king, doesn't want to deal with the marketplace. Sun doesn't want to work, Sun doesn't want to do business, King doesn't want to do that stuff. King wants to be on a throne in an ivory tower, wants to be delegating and ruling and decreeing and dictating. So when the Sun, our egos, comes to Libra, it's basically about us, just having to do the daily things and, not get our way, and Libra's the fall point for the Sun, so we're past the equinox where the Sun has fallen below the equator. So the Sun is slowly heading towards the winter solstice, to its low point, to its weak point. And that's nature gives us that lesson when summer ends, that, you had fun in the summer, but it can't last forever. And, you have to deal with, it's harvest time and the fall's coming and winter's coming. So, basically the king, the Sun, our egos our egos are going to realize, we're just like everyone else. And really, we're all the same, no matter who we are, and since Libra's a Venus sign, it's all about friendship and, cooperation. So our egos are going to, learn here that, you just can't get your way at everyone else's expense just because you want it. So, it's a little humble pie time. So what else do we have here? Virgo. Okay. Oh yeah. So another thing with that, across from Libra, where the Sun is entering, you've got Aries with Uranus in retrograde. So, the Sun will be looking at Aries. The Sun will be looking at Aries with Uranus in there. And Uranus is all about, making radical new changes. But since it's in retrograde, Uranus is like, let's make a radical new change by just winding the clock back to the 1950s or the 1990s or the 1960s, or, some time that people, in their memories and, with their nostalgia perceive as ideal and perfect. So the Sun is going to be at its weakest point down in Libra. Our egos are going to be weak and, be looking across to Aries out of Libra. And Uranus is going, just go back in time. Just go back to that old relationship, or go back to that old time, or that old job, or that old way of doing things. Yeah, it's going to be great. But our egos aren't going to have power to do that. So they're going to be eating their humble pie because they're going to want to go back in time to some comfortable, seemingly ideal time, but they won't have the ability to turn back time. So, c'est la vie. So the other thing too, on the 18th, Jupiter and the Moon are in a mutual aspect. So they'll be looking at each other. So Jupiter in Scorpio and Moon in Taurus. So the Moon is exalted in Taurus. It's basically, It's like where the moon is a celebrity and it has, you know, that strength. And so the, you know, since the moon is looking at Jupiter, you know, we're in Scorpio, and Jupiter is the higher consciousness. So the higher consciousness and the moon, our minds, our consciousness, you know, our regular sort of middle consciousness will be looking at each other. And since Jupiter is in Scorpio, it's going to bring our attention to, again, deep, hidden, underlying, you know, issues, emotional, psychological, spiritual issues. So, you know, the moon will be looking at Jupiter in Scorpio and being, you know, aware of these hidden, you know, these deep-rooted issues. But then Jupiter looks at the moon in Taurus, and Taurus is all about wealth. And so, you know, higher consciousness will remind the moon, our minds, you know, things aren't as bad as you may feel like they are when you panic, you know. So Jupiter will be saying, you know, realize the wealth that you have at this time, because you do have a lot of it. You know, especially if, you know, you live in the first world, you know, you live in the Western world, you have more food than you can eat, you have all your resources covered, and, you know, and you have the people in your life. So it's not as bad as, you know, we may think. So moving on, we jump to October 24th. So October 24th, one of the big transits, Mercury enters Scorpio. So Mercury and Jupiter together in Scorpio, different ends of Scorpio. So Mercury on the 24th is at 0 degrees, it's at that miracle degree. Jupiter's at 27 degrees of Scorpio, so it's in the scorpion's tail. So it's not quite in the stinger, but it's in the scorpion's tail. So Jupiter is sort of stirring up, you know, deep issues, you know, deep individual and collective issues. And, you know, gets a little anger going, you know, and it just gets us to an uncomfortable place where we're feeling and thinking and facing things that we would just rather deny and just sort of stuff into the closet and sweep under the rug. But since Jupiter and Mercury are there, now the intellect is in Scorpio, where all these uncomfortable things live. So it's going to bring our attention to it. It's going to make us think about, you know, how do we resolve these things? So, you know, the way I see this, you know, with Jupiter and Mercury both in Scorpio, it's higher consciousness, teaching the intellect to, you know, examine the unconscious, the unconscious, and our, you know, our deep unconscious, emotional, and psychological and spiritual issues. So this is a time of healing and transformation. You know, to transform, you have to see, you know, what's going on within you. And then you have to, you know, cut down the old so that, you know, something new can take its place. So, you know, it's a time of healing and transformation. And it's not always fun, but it has to be done. And, you know, once it's over, you know, it's something you can really be happy about. So, such are the times we live in. So, something about so the moon here, on the 24th, the moon will be in Leo. So there'll be a mutual aspect with that Neptune and Aquarius, that retrograde Neptune and Aquarius. So, you know, Leo and Neptune are opposite signs. So that's why, so those signs, whatever is in those signs, look at each other. So the moon and Neptune will be looking at each other. So again, the moon is the mind in Leo. And Leo is all about, you know, what you want to make happen, you know, what you want to do and what you want to manifest so you can feel good, in life. So that's where so the moon is in Leo there, and, you know, we're thinking about, you know, and sort of, you know, mulling over, you know, what do we want out of life? What's going to make us feel good, and how do we do it? And that moon will be looking into Aquarius at that Neptune retrograde. So this will be a time where, you know, we're definitely prone to deception, because again, Neptune in Aquarius is all about, you know, we the people, because Aquarius stands for we the people, we the, you know, the regular everyday people. And Neptune is deception and delusion and illusions. So it'll definitely be a time where, we're definitely prone to deception, prone to being deceived, and prone to deluding ourselves. So watch for another scandal story on October the 24th. And, take a good look at it. Especially if it's another Jeffrey Epstein thing, pay attention, because that thing's not over with yet. And, especially on that day, pay attention to anyone who, is trying to sort of force your hand and get you to do something, very quickly and very hastily. Because, when someone tries to con you, they want you to act now. It's like when you get those spam emails and some guy says, "Oh, I'm in Nigeria and I'm going to get $16 million from the Nigerian government. I just need $10,000 for you, $10,000 from you for the legal fees." So, act now or you'll miss out on this. So people do this in the news all the time. Politicians do this shit all the time. It's like AOC saying that the world's going to end in 12 years. It's like, really, or it's like Team Bush back after 9/11, where they're saying you need to give up all your freedoms right now because you're in so much danger. So, anyone who's trying to rush you like that, is a con man, con woman, whatever. So, a lot of cons going on right now. I don't want to get into it right now, but, always remember, I've mentioned this before, but always remember, the people who can best and most effectively manipulate you are people that you like. Because if you think someone's a total asshole or a bad or an evil person, they can't manipulate you. The best they can do is play reverse psychology against you. But they can't manipulate you. But the people who like you can manipulate you. And just because you went to college or you own a house or you're in the military or you have such and such university degree or work experience doesn't mean you can't be manipulated or you can't be deceived. So bear that in mind. Watch for scandal stories on the 24th, because I guarantee you, scandal stories coming out on the 24th, those will be fake. That'll be the anonymous whistleblower from CIA that's filing the complaint against the White House that, and no one will name this person. This intelligence official who writes a letter like a law firm does, with all the endnotes and the footnotes and the legal terminology. So, bear that in mind. 24th, Deception Day, D-Day. All right, October the 28th. Let me see if there's anything more on the 24th. I forgot something. Nope. All right, so the 28th of October. So, big day here. So on the 28th of October, Venus enters Scorpio. So, what you basically have here, it's another one of these sort of versions of the goddess in the underworld, because Scorpio is all about, hidden things and deep underlying, emotional, psychological, spiritual issues. It's about, conspiracies and lies and hidden agendas. Scorpio is sexuality too. And Venus also symbolizes sexuality. So look for a sex scandal on the 28th, possibly coming out, or just shortly thereafter. Maybe the FBI will actually do the right thing and issue a warrant for an Interpol warrant for the arrest of Prince Andrew, so they can question him about his Jeffrey Epstein activities. You never know. So another cool thing here about Venus entering Scorpio is that it sets up a Saraswati yoga. So a yoga, yoga just means a union. So in this case, the union is, a conjunction of planets. So the, Saraswati is the name of a goddess. It's kind of like, almost like the mother of the universe, type of a goddess. There's a river in India called the Saraswati, and incidentally, the name of Abraham's wife in the Bible from the Old Testament, Sarah, comes from Saraswati because it's all part of an Indo-European, aka Aryan, tradition. The Sumer and Babylon, and then later, Phoenicia, Cana, which is called Israel, all comes from that Indo-European world. So Saraswati, Sarah, whatever. It's kind of a little sidebar, but it's basically Saraswati is it's like a goddess of basically like beauty and art and again, creativity. So with the Saraswati yogas, it's when all of the benefic or the benevolent planets of in the 7 visible planet solar system, it's when all those benevolent planets, so we're talking Jupiter, Mercury, and Venus, and the moon is a benefic too, but the moon moves very quickly, so it doesn't stay put for long. But on the 28th, Jupiter, Mercury, and Venus are all going to be in Scorpio, and on the 28th, Jupiter is at the 28th degree of Scorpio. So Jupiter is now into the Scorpion's tail. So those final degrees of Scorpio. So, the tail is where the stinger is. The stinger is, definitely the stinger is the 29th, the final degree of Scorpio. But, 28th degree, you're getting into the stinger. You're well into the tail. So, the whole thing here with, this Saraswati yoga with all the benefic planets in Scorpio is that, we're going to get some tough love. So basically, we're going to get stung by the scorpion in order to deal with, things we've been in denial about, things that we've been avoiding dealing with, or things that, have been hidden from us. We didn't even know they existed, but they were underneath the surface, and they were, lies and deceptions and hidden agendas and, all those kinds of things. And even, things within our own consciousness, problems that we were putting off dealing with, or things that we didn't even know about. So all these benevolent planets in this Saraswati yoga are going to help us make lemons out of lemonade. So it's going to give us a difficult situation that great results are going to come out of. So, it might look, not good. Might look like a total pain in the ass in the beginning, but, it all develops for the better. So, on the same day, on the 28th, you have a new moon in Libra. So, the thing about new moons is that they are the end and the beginning of a lunar cycle. So again, the moon, it's our mind, it's our total consciousness, not just the intellect, but your feelings, your memories, your past life memories, the whole bit. So the new moon is the beginning and the ending of a solar cycle. These solar cycles are, about 28 days, so we have 12 in a year. And, the thing about the moon is that in the, the pre-Judeo-Christian, the shamanistic cultures, the moon was considered to be a gateway to the dimension where the ascended masters live. So the ascended masters, they're also called the ancestors, and they're also called the elves, in the European tradition. So these ancestors or these elves, these ascended masters, they're humans who have left the cycle of reincarnation, and now basically their job, their purpose is to help us to evolve like they did and, free ourselves from the cycle of reincarnation. So, in these old traditions all over the world, they said that the moon, the illumination of the moon came from the souls of these ascended masters, or these, these elves. So, these ancestors. So not ancestors like your biological ancestors, but these humans who liberated themselves from, reincarnation. So, the full moon is a great time to, make a new start and to set new goals and to, push towards these goals. And we can ask, these ascended masters, these evolved humans to help us to achieve those goals. So, since it's in Libra here, since this full moon is in Libra, it's it's a great time to to basically see, to weigh the value of things in our lives, because the symbol for Libra, it's it's those merchant scales. So weigh the value of the partnerships and the relationships in your life and the situations in your life, and if they're of great value to you and they serve you, then keep them, and nurture and foster them. And if they don't work, then move on to new ones, and use the creativity of this time to to build new ones. So there's been a lot of anger ever since the spring, and so this is a good time to really sort of repair relationships, because there's been so much self-righteousness flying around with all of this Saturn and K2 activity and Pluto. So, and then the other thing too with this new moon is that the new moon is looking direct at Uranus in Aries. So Uranus, one of the the titles for Uranus is the Great Awakener. So Uranus helps us to see what's really going on in our lives and our world, and make big radical new changes. Because we have this awakening where we're like, we don't want to do what we've always been doing. It's been a shitty deal, actually. Let's do something different. So this is a window of opportunity to do new stuff in our world and in our individual lives. So and the thing about these revelations here with the moon, our mind, full moon, looking at Uranus, the Great Awakener, during this new moon, is that there are going to be revelations coming our way that are going to shock us. Just you look in this year, so many things that used to be considered conspiracy theories are now just accepted, by officialdom. The whole Jeffrey Epstein thing. People are saying for years that there were these, secret societies, these secret, hush-hush groups of elite and wealthy people who were basically a sex cult. They're having these big orgies in like these temple-looking buildings. Well, now we know that's true, and it's accepted, and the FBI has been investigating it. And, there's the Navy and the Air Force have been talking about how they've been monitoring UFOs, and pilots have been telling them about UFOs, and they tell pilots to report back if they see UFOs. And a congressman from, I think it was New York and New Jersey, formally asked the Pentagon if they created Lyme disease as a biological weapon, and if it it accidentally got out. So, and Lyme disease is named after Lyme, Connecticut, on the coast of Connecticut and Long Island Sound, and across the sound off of Long Island there's an island called Plum Island, and there's a biological research facility that was actually created for this Nazi named Erich Traub, who came here after World War II to the United States. He was a scientist. He was Hitler's top biological warfare specialist, and he specialized in spreading biological agents, diseases, through fleas and ticks and other bugs. So, put two and two together. So many things coming out of the woodwork. So then we get to October 31st. Now, the big thing with October 31st is that this Saraswati yoga is, it really gets even more powerful, because not only will Jupiter, Mercury, and Venus be in Scorpio all together, but you're going to have the moon in there as well. So all of the benevolent planets, of the visible planets in the solar system. One really cool thing here too is that, in Scorpio, you have Mercury and Venus together at the 3rd degree. So you get this Masonic 3rd degree, which is really cool. And, so you get Mercury and Venus at the same degree. So they're on equal footing. And when you look at the tree of life, the Kabbalistic tree of life, from the Kabbalah, you have these two spheres. You have Nitzak and Hod. So Nitzak is Venus, it means victory, and Hod, it means something like discernment. So basically it's, Venus is, creativity and intuition, and, Mercury is intellect. So they're complements. They're equal complements to one another. One is not better than the other. You need both. So in this Saraswati yoga, in Scorpio, you've got Mercury and Venus. They're at the lowest degree, so they're in charge of the conjunction. They're influencing it the most. And so it's really, really cool. You have to have these counterbalancing complementary forces. It's like, the complements of feminine and masculine, yin and yang, counterbalanced. So, and then too, with the Saraswati yoga, you have Jupiter in the final degree of Scorpio. It's 29 degrees, and so it's in the Scorpion's tail. So this Saraswati yoga with these benevolent planets, it's gonna sting, but it's gonna come in the form of revelations and scandals, and it's not gonna be fun for a lot of people, especially people who, they're very convinced that they know how things work, and there's no information outside of what they know. It's gonna be tough for them, but for people who want to accept these revelations and these this unveiling of hidden information and these changes, it's going to be a lot better time for those people. In this, really the Saraswati yoga in Scorpio, these benevolent, benefic planets, this Jupiter, Moon, Mercury, and Venus, they're helping us to heal individual and collective, global, nationwide, community-wide issues that need to be healed. Things that are underneath the surface, that are buried in our unconsciousness, that need to be brought to the surface and healed. So, especially in the last 70 years, doing that kind of thing, it's very it's un-American in a sense. In the era of the American dream, the prevailing mindset was, if you don't admit you have a problem, it doesn't exist. So it's like, just if you're not feeling good, go get a bigger house and a nicer car and get a promotion at work and, have a drink or, take a little smoky break, but, don't worry about your problems. Those don't exist if you don't think about them and you don't admit you have them. So we have to undo all that. We have to undo that mindset completely. It's like, you can't be wishy-washy and just, crawling in your own misery all the time. But when you have problems, you have to face them and deal with them. And, and they don't feel good, but, that's just the way it works. So, like I said, major revelations here. And, through the month, it's like I mentioned it before, but, through the month, we have this yod, this finger of God. And, again, it's a Western astrology concept that I got from another, more experienced astrologer who I consider a mentor, but, I wanted to pass it on. So this yod, it's all about, and this is all through the month of October, where you have, Mars is looking 6 houses away with the 6th aspect to Neptune, and 8 houses away with the 8th aspect over to Uranus. And so, when you get those, you get Mars looking at those 2 planets, you get revelations and, the uncovering of hidden agendas and lies and scandals and, conspiracies and, you can even get disease, like epidemic type stuff. So, more evidence here to make the case of a hard flu season. And I think there's going to be complications with the flu vaccines because, it's like one of those things that comes out of the dark to bite you in the ass because, people get, with all the Sagittarius activity, with all this self-righteousness, people get very self-righteous about medical science. And they treat it like a religion and like a god, and it's like every year medical science knows everything. And then the next year they have to tell us, well, last year we thought we knew everything, but we didn't. We know this new thing now. But this year we definitely know everything. And they just do this every single year, One year eggs are gonna kill you. The next year you can't eat enough eggs. The next year eggs are gonna kill you again. It's like this with coffee, with wine, with everything, alcohol. So, and again, with this yod, with this finger of God, with Mars looking at Neptune and Uranus, it's a trigger for Neptune and Uranus who are gonna, bring out these revelations and, and definitely, some potential for natural disasters and earthquakes because, King Neptune or, Poseidon, the god of the ocean, jabbing his spear, his trident into the earth and shaking the earth and churning up ocean waves and storms and all kinds of stuff. So, big month here in October. So big changes. So be aware of big changes, big scandals, and be aware of people who are going to try to redirect you from looking at those scandals. And watch for the storms and the earthquakes too. Even volcanic activity. So this yod, this finger of God, brings awakening. When God moves, the earth shakes. And then too, on the 31st, Mercury is going to go into retrograde at 3 degrees of Scorpio. So not only will Mercury and Venus be, at this 3rd degree, influencing this whole Saraswati yoga of all these benevolent planets in Scorpio, but at that degree, Mercury is going to go backwards. It's going to appear to be moving backwards from the Earth. It's going to do that for 3 weeks. So definitely, there's setbacks and little hiccups and things during Mercury retrogrades, and it's time for us to really, think about what we're doing and think about what we really want to say and what we really want to do. It's a time where you don't want to initiate things unless you have to, because you should be reviewing. And since it's starting in Scorpio, it's going to be about, look deeper and review, things that are deep down, your deep emotions, your deep thoughts, your deep issues, fears, all that stuff. That's all I have for the 31st. Change and transformation is being queued up here. And, and really, November 7th is going to be a big date. That's when Jupiter enters Sagittarius. So Jupiter is it's going to be with Ketu and Saturn and Pluto. So Jupiter is going to come home to Sagittarius, to its home sign. And, Jupiter is going to show us the truth. And it's also going to make people, it's going to show us the truth, and it's either going to, people are either going to accept it or they're going to get more self-righteous, because Saturn and Ketu are already in Sagittarius. And they're all about being obsessive and fundamentalist and, extremist and, and self-righteous and closed-minded. So, when Jupiter comes home, it's going to bring more transformation, more change, and more revelations, and people are going to react the way they react. So, be ready for someone to, just get angry and, possibly write you off because you have a different opinion than them. It could be someone that you've been friends with, or, someone in your family you've gotten along with for years, but they just can't accept, what's going on in the world, especially politically. I think people are going to be shown what their favorite politicians are really like, what they're really all about. And, at the end of the day, it's a bunch of freaks, and narcissists battling for power. Psychologists will tell you that narcissists and, psychopaths and sociopaths gravitate to positions of power. So this is going to be made more painfully clear to us. And again, Jeffrey Epstein scandal, it's all about that. So, a lot of people will resist the revelations and the changes. They don't want to let go of the old paradigm, and they want to hang on to their illusions and their self-delusions, and, they want to hang on to, the hunky-dory version of the world, that was sold to us in the 1950s and has, been slowly dying since, kind of the end of the Cold War. So that's what it is. And then, when you get Jupiter and Ketu and Sagittarius together, really you get social chaos. And, I think you're going to see a breakdown of government starting in November. And, because Saturn partly represents government. And, Saturn is going closer to Pluto. Pluto's direct and Saturn is moving forward. Saturn moves a little faster. So they're going to have an exact conjunction on January the 15th, 2020. So in Saturn representing government, and Pluto, god of the underworld, who's basically a wrecking ball, when they conjunct, you're going to see government's going to start breaking down and coming apart at the seams in certain ways. the freaks in government, they're going to be the political reality show, all those TV characters that we call senators and presidents and congressmen. They're going to be so busy fighting each other, they're not going to have time to do much else. So, basically through times like this, have an open mind and an open heart, because that's really going to get you through these times with your sanity and without, your blood pressure through the roof. So, and, look for people of like mind who have an open mind and an open heart. And among the people and you deal with, you're going to see a divergence. You're going to see people who can accept these revelations and these changes. And you're going to see people who, they just want to stay in the 1980s or the 1990s, and they want to think that, joining the right club makes you a good person and just fixes the world. Because the thing we have to deal with here in this ascension, in these years that we're going into, we have to retake personal responsibility, because really, taking responsibility for your life and taking action to make your life better is the most spiritual thing you can do. But, for years, for decades, we've been in this, and, really in the age of Pisces, we're dominated by the church, by Christianity, by Islam, by the monarchs that the church and that the monarchs that Islam put on their thrones. We've been used to, sort of kicking back and letting people rule us and think for us and tell us what to do. It doesn't matter if you have a college degree or what your work experience is. That's what we've been raised to do. So we have to snap out of that in order to properly transform and evolve. So that was a mouthful, but that's everything. Thanks for tuning in for this one. I'll have more videos coming out very soon. And thanks again for tuning in. I hope you got a lot out of this and you enjoyed it. So I do Vedic astrology readings for individual people. And really, an astrology reading is a roadmap for how you move forward in your life for the rest of your life. And it helps you to really play to your strengths and be aware of your weaknesses and improve upon your weaknesses. And it really helps you in difficult times like the ones we're living in. So I highly recommend you get one of these readings. One thing that I do is I build you a meditation and a mantra. So using that meditation to help you to basically reprogram your unconscious mind, which is basically like an operating system. So these mantras are system updates for your operating system. So get a reading from me. I highly recommend it. I also do runes, and that's another way to kind of map your mind out and see where you're having difficulties and where you're getting stuck. And again, I build you a meditation so you can overcome those challenges. And I also have some Qigong DVDs on sale for download. And Qigong is a really good mind-body practice to help you to basically access your unconscious mind and really see what you're really feeling, what you're really thinking deep down, and how to heal those things and resolve those things. So check it out. My website is thecosmicalchemist.com. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll talk to you next time. Have a good one.